Welcome to Fellowship Safaris, conversations about people of color and their journeys to subspecialist training in their countries of origin and around the world. Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Jerry Kariajahe. I'm an adolescent medicine specialist and also consultant pediatrician based in Nairobi, Kenya. And today, during our fellowship safari, I don't get the opportunity very often to be able to interview and have a conversation with a mentor. And so I am getting an opportunity of a lifetime being able to sit with somebody who's been a mentor to many and somebody who has been a strong supporter of the younger pediatrician coming up, as well as such a source of wisdom. And I don't want to get far ahead of myself. I'd like to give him an opportunity to introduce himself and his professional qualifications.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Njeri. If you'll allow me to just call you Dr. Njeri.
Just call me Jerry, it's fine.
Karenja is a bit long.
Yeah.
But thank you very much. And I'd like to, first of all, dispel some rumor that I have wisdom. I do have silver hair, so that gets mistaken for wisdom. But we'll try and chug along. But my name is David Githanga. I'm a pediatrician. I did cardiology and I did public health. And I still do those two things side by side. And environmental health is also another love of mine professionally.
Yeah.
So I dabble in all those literally continuously, back to back.
Back to back. And those are all things I really want to be able to get into. Yes. But I would like to start by asking way back when. Okay, let me not choke because I use so much.
Long time ago.
Long ago.
Yes.
What was happening in the mind of 5-year-old or 8-year-old David that made him think potentially about medicine? Or was he even thinking about medicine at that point?
Right. I'll go way back.
Yes.
Way back, let me say, between the ages of about 8, 7.
Yeah.
I really wanted to be like my parish priest. Yes. I wanted to become, in fact, Ed Lola. So I did my primary school certification and I was got to a government school. But he convinced me to actually go to the seminary. Seminaries usually they sort of encourage you into or try and get you into considering joining priesthood, but it's basically a secondary school. And so I went to the seminary to begin my Form 1 and by the time I was in Form 2, I was a little more knowledgeable and I exactly knew that being a priest isn't becoming Ed Lola. It is a life that is different.
Yeah.
I had been born in a family of 10 children, so between my mom and dad, we were 12. So at any given time while having meals, there were 24 hands on the plate. So I couldn't see myself being a priest where, you live a life of prayer. You're on your own. They seem to be full of people around them and so on, full of life. But ultimately, they go back to their own places. And that wasn't the life I had envisaged. Yeah. And it's at that point that I moved away. But I was in a very good nurturing seminary in Eldoret then. Mother of Apostles is called. And they said, you don't really need to be a priest. You need to be a good person. So there wasn't pressure of needing to become a priest. So we were let to go and we grew up well. My class actually turned out to have lots of people who went to priesthood. In fact, we had 2 bishops in my class as well. We still meet. In fact, our senior bishop in this city was my classmate.
Wow.
I shall not mention his name.
Yes. Was your classmate in seminary in Eldoret?
Yes, in Eldoret.
Yeah.
So I didn't become a priest. Around about Form 2, Form 3, I knew I wanted to do something else. Yeah. But I was born in a town that is militarized. It's called Gilgil. There are lots of soldiers and full of all these disciplined forces. So every boy that grew up there wanted to become a soldier, boys and guns and tanks. Yeah. So you had this sort of inclination. I want to become a soldier. I'll become a soldier. And those days, and when you finish Form 4, you would basically join in as a cadet. Yes. And you emerge as a lieutenant. In 2-3 years, you're a captain. And generally that was it. So that was still there until I hit my Form 4. One of these chaps who came to teach us, as he was waiting to go to the university, and he says, I think you're very good in these subjects. You should consider going to do medicine. In fact, what I'd suggest is that you pick PCB, physics, chemistry, and biology, and subsidiary maths. And that's, in fact, I insist that you should, in fact, apply to Thika High School, where I was.
Yeah.
So the seed was planted.
Yeah.
But I said, but I want to become a soldier. Say, you can become a soldier, but after that, you go and study medicine. So my path was charted.
Yeah.
I also had another village mate. I call him village mate. He's a senior pediatrician, Dr. Mugo in Nakuru.
Yes.
He was always the big boy who was clever and so on. We wanted to become like him.
Wow.
So between this teacher and trained teacher, who is a professor of obstetrics gynecology, you'll know him, Koigi Kamal.
Wow.
And Mugo Nganga.
Yes.
You are basically sorted.
Yeah.
So I knew I was going to become a doctor. And I even knew what I was going to do in Form 5 and Form 6. And I knew where I wanted to go.
Wow.
So the rest of it was really just followed course and so on. You passed. I didn't go to Thika High School. I ended up going to Machakos High School, but I was displaced by somebody. So somebody swapped schools, but I ended up in a different school.
Yes.
I still did make my grades to go to medical school.
Yeah.
So I go to medical school and it was all fun and so on. And I enjoyed my stay in the medical school.
Yeah.
And third year, we go for clinicals, and you allocated a ward where there was a cardiologist. David Silverstein, still work with him at the hospital, and is my good friend.
Yeah.
So he would take us to the cath lab all the time, and we look at all these hearts and so on, catheterized. You're dazzled.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to become a David Silverstein, cardiology.
Yeah.
So all this is pretty early, you're a third-year medical student. You have a long way to go. But in the back of my mind, the military thing, becoming a soldier, wasn't very far off.
Still?
Still. So I knew that I will finish medicine, join the army, and it's very surprising. You think you're going to join the army to basically work with tanks and mortars.
Yes.
A bit foolish, because as a doctor, then you end up just doing medical work rather than working with artillery and so on.
Yeah.
But that's a boyish thing that remained. So that idea persisted. I actually did write to defense, and I said I want to join as a cadet. I said, finish your internship and then come. I think 5 or so of my classmates actually did join. When the time came, I didn't. Maybe that interest had gone away.
Yeah.
I went and finished my medicine and did my internship. I went to Kakamega and went
Is that
to
where you did your internship?
Yes. And everybody who went to Kakamega, it was not a preferred destination those days. We all chose to go there, and it was a lovely experience.
What was the best thing about being in Kakamega at that time?
It's, first of all, a smaller town.
Yeah.
You're all together, you work together. It rains at 4:00. So if you haven't bought your food
by then,
and it rains heavy.
Yes.
So, but usually, because you're all tightly together, those that were not working would usually go and buy vegetables or whatever, so that you have food to eat. It was a lovely group. We still are fairly tight.
Yeah.
And then we finished that internship. It was a lovely place to work in.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time playing tennis with our consultants at the club. So club culture was introduced to us.
In Kakamega.
In Kakamega as interns.
Yes.
And our consultant was very good, our surgical consultant. So it was a nice place to be.
Yeah.
And every end of month was a club night.
What? Can you paint the club night in Kakamega back then?
Life rotated around about the club.
Yeah.
In the sense that people from Western Kenya generally tend to travel home towards the end of the month. So it's a dull little town, nothing interesting. But come end of month, there's a golf competition, there's tennis competition, there's squash competition. There are all sorts of games and food and whatever and dance. Yeah. So we lived for the club nights.
You're like, I'm just waiting for the end of the month.
Yes, to come.
For more than one reason.
For more than one reason. Yeah. And it was nice and fun and a good place to be in.
Yeah.
So you finish that end of the journey and then you are swung around to Machakos.
Yes.
You go to Machakos.
Yeah.
I work in pediatrics for half the time. Half of the time I worked in obs-gynae, where I did a lot of cesarean sections in my life.
Yeah. In a day, roughly, how many C-sections in Machakos would
probably
you do?
12, 13. There's a night I did 14 in a night.
Wow.
And those are the ones I did on my own, not teaching the intern, because a lot of previous scars, actually sometimes fairly complex because of the adhesions you get and so forth.
Yeah.
But I moved quickly. It's not my kind of thing, but I moved to pediatrics.
Yes.
And I stayed in pediatrics for a year and then moved back to Nairobi.
Yeah.
When I moved back to Nairobi, I went to Ward 45. These days you call it Ward 1E or whatever else you call it. That's the Children's Cancer Ward.
Yeah, in Kenyatta.
In Kenyatta.
Yes.
So I worked there and then joined the Department of Pediatrics.
Yeah. When you were doing your peds, was the idea there to specialize in pediatrics, or it was just you found yourself in the time that you were in Machakos and then in Ward 45, now Ward 1E?
I think I was always inclined to children, and I'm probably working in Ward 45, basically children who have malignancies.
Yes.
I think I was always inclined that direction. In fact, opposite that ward was the adult cancer ward, which was a very gloomy, very terrible place. The opposite side, unless a kid is very unwell, they're all running around and say, I am Hodgkin's, I am this, that, and the other. And I get that blue medicine. No, I don't like that one. That one makes me vomit. Yeah. So I was always inclined to children, and I'd still choose pediatrics, even if I was to start all over.
Wow. Yeah. And with this experience in Ward 45, it sounds like you'd have landed oncology or hematology oncology.
Remember, I was a student and a good friend of Silverstein. So
you were still in the mix.
Yes, I was still there. I was still gunning for it. In fact, we did that. And when you think in a certain direction, you even get your mindset to work in that direction, so that when you have group discussions, you take on the cardiology questions and you read much harder. You are the one to help us answer this. How do you do this? Yeah. So you sort of move in that directions of your thought. So I guess that reinforced each other, and that's where I ended up. Yeah. And I'm still there.
And you're still there. I know you've mentioned Dr. Silverstein, who I've never had the pleasure of meeting, by the way. I just hear about him, and I've seen his plaque somewhere.
Yes.
When you think about mentorship, what were some of the things that you were looking for in a mentor as you were trying to make the decision and trying to get into cardiology?
I think mentorship is, in my view, are people who did what you thought should be done. The way they looked after patients. When I look at some of my pediatrician older colleagues, there are some that I still like to see looking at patients and talking to patients. You learn. Dr. Mbudi is one of those. Joe Mbudi and people like Como and so on. I mean, you learn a lot just passively. And all those people who mentor you, they have those qualities. They really connect with the patient. They connect with the parents and so on. They are very intense in their work. Yeah. And I think you want to be like them. And I think that still remains even now. I mean, I don't consider myself to have arrived that I can't learn from anyone. Yes. Of course, you learn even from the younger ones who now speak differently to the younger parents who have different expectations, because you have all this tussling and hustling about what they Googled and so on. Yes. So that space
it's very different.
It's very different. Yeah. So the mentorship is like a continuous sort of thing and depends on situations. Yeah.
Okay. And so back then, was pediatric cardiology, where could you study it?
In Kenyatta National Hospital. When I finished my pediatrics in the 1990, I knew I still wanted to do cardiology. I was employed by Kenyatta National Hospital then. Yeah. So I joined the team, of course, doing pediatrics and running the cardiac services with Dr. Acesso. He's since passed away. So I worked with Dr. Acesso for a whole year. Yeah. In the cath lab and doing things. It was very easy to work with. He let you do things. He teaches you things. Yeah. And I was the only one, so he had lots of time for me. Yeah. During that 1 year, I also started looking at where I would go to train further, because there wasn't any formal training of cardiology in the country. So I remember, I don't know how to get all these contacts of various training units in the US and in the UK. I wrote letters. I had a big box file full of these letters.
Yes, because you guys used to write.
Yes, write letters.
Write letters.
I still have them. Where you're writing to the Mayo Clinic, you're writing to Duke University, you're writing to Baylor in Texas.
And this is snail mail. Like, it's going to take some time
you type,
to come back.
You type and so on. I remember I got 3 responses and they said, yeah, we are willing to take you, but you will need to know that tuition here is $40,000 a year, and that does not include your accommodation.
Whoa.
Number 2, we cannot guarantee that we'll take you. This is a very competitive subject. So I was called for 2 interviews.
Yeah.
I think at the Mayo and the other one in North Carolina.
Yes.
And one of our lecturers, Alan Cross, told me, do you know how far those places are? You're going for interviews to those 2 places.
Yes.
You don't even know whether you
know how far they are from each other?
Yes, each
other.
And
then from you right now.
Yes, and money obviously was scarce those days. So it was very sobering.
Yeah.
But I also worked closely with one of our older or senior pediatric cardiologist, Betty Gekonyo. I'm sure she'll be happy if I mention her.
Yes, duly mentioned.
Yes. She was very, very handy. And one day I remember she said, I would like you to take these 2 patients who are going for surgery to the US, and we can arrange for you to have an attachment at the University of Maryland for about maybe 6 weeks. And then in the other 6 weeks, you can go to Birmingham, Alabama, which had a big cardiac center. So, yes, I said, yes, a chance to go to the US.
Yes.
And I did take these 2 kids for their surgery. But while I was there, enjoying learning all this echocardiography and so on, of course, it was pretty new. They were more advanced than we are in Kenyatta.
Yeah.
I get a phone call. I say, hello, is this David? Yeah. This funny accent. I say, yes, it's David. Oh, I'm so-and-so, and I'm calling from Glasgow. You had written to us about coming to study cardiology. Are you still interested? I say, yes, I am.
Yes.
I am interested.
Yeah.
I said, a position has opened up because somebody who was selected did not come. And would you be willing? How quickly can you come? I say, I like to come as quickly as possible, but I cannot guarantee that my hospital will pay my tickets and so on. He says, that's not a problem. You will come in as a registrar, you get a salary, we will pay your ticket and so on.
Yeah.
Your relocation, whatever. So that's not a problem.
Yeah.
I said, the answer is yes.
Yes, double yes.
Yes, so I am coming.
Yeah.
So in that trip of mine at the University of Maryland, which was a lovely place, I did 3 weeks, another 3 weeks in Birmingham.
Yes.
Then I had to come back.
Yes.
Because I was not going to miss this opportunity of going to join in as a registrar.
Right, absolutely.
Which is a good position. So I ended up going to Glasgow to study as an international student.
Yes.
But I was also a little lucky.
Yeah.
One of our consultants, Dr. Anabwani, had studied cardiology there. So when he was asked to give me recommendations, of course, he gave me glowing recommendation and he had a good name there.
Yeah.
So when I went there, it was very good.
Yes.
They gave you a flat, you're on a salary.
Yes.
I was able to take my family with me.
Oh, and how big was your family then?
I had 2 kids who are about 7 and 4.
Yes.
7 and 4.
Wow.
And we went together and it was intense.
Yes.
It was intense.
Yeah.
It was intense, but we lived within the hospital.
Yeah.
And we arrived in November. It's cold.
Yes.
It's wintry.
Yeah.
Windy.
And you're coming from
I'm
Nairobi.
coming from Nairobi, yes, which is warm in around about November.
Right.
But it was a very, very nice experience. That's how I ended up in cardiology.
In cardiology, it's such an amazing thing how things just came together, especially because of that funding question. Because to date, a lot of people, their barrier is the funding piece.
I was very lucky because within that time, I had 2 years. 1 year, I had a guaranteed job. The next year, we engaged in some research that paid my salary.
Yeah.
So for the 2 years, I was able to be funded. You have a flat, you live in the hospital, and you have a salary. So it wasn't difficult. But the work was intense because you actually work round the clock.
Yeah.
And this was a major center for doing cardiac surgery and west of Scotland. patients were flown in. Edinburgh was another center, but it closed down, so we had more work.
Yeah.
But there was a little bit of problem initially before we went to do cardiology. We had a professor who came from Australia.
Yes.
Professor Yu. Yu was a neonatologist.
Yes.
He wowed everybody and really wanted the whole of our class to go and do neonatology.
And this is your PEDS class now?
This is our PEDS class.
Yes. And at that time, you were how many?
We were, I think, about 20.
And he wanted all of you.
Yes, he was really just saying Australia is the place to go,
Yes.
Neonatology has very good outcomes and so on. That's how Fred Were and Nikals and Warriors of this world and Murilla.
Wow, that's how they ended up in neonatology.
They ended up in those directions, of course. Nikal had gone earlier.
Yeah.
So it was a very good thing. So my friend Fred Were went to Melbourne and I went to Glasgow.
Yes.
At the same time, and we came back at the same time.
Oh. Yeah, and so it sounds like volumes was a really good thing in terms of what you experienced. And I'm so glad you didn't get swayed.
No, I didn't. I was still into cardiology.
You were still resolute on cardiology.
Yes.
And it sounds like the other plus was also being able to travel with your family.
Yes.
So what were some of the lows of being in Glasgow?
Now, my wife, who's a pathologist, a hematologist, had been to Canada the year before. And I was left with these two kids. And it was harder.
Yeah.
I just finished my master's and you're busy doing locums and going for deliveries across the city.
Yes.
And I had two children. And my son was about maybe 2.5 then.
Yes.
We had two house girls and my sister was in the house.
Yes.
But he wanted me to give him milk. So I'd come very tired.
Oh.
And he'd say, I want milk. And it's you to give it to me. So you come, you're tired. Both of you are sleepy.
Yeah.
So he really... It was harder than I anticipated.
Yeah.
Staying with two children. And I'm here and I'm all the help.
Yes.
But I wasn't going to stop my wife from going to develop herself. I said, just go. It's fine. I'll manage the kids.
Yes. The verbal of it was, yes, I support you.
Yeah,
but
support you. Yeah.
The actual...
It was harder being away from the kids and so on. So when I got this scholarship and she was coming back and I'm getting one to go, we knew one thing. We are not going to be separated.
Yes, we will do this thing together.
So I was allowed to go. But she wasn't going to be released by hematology. She'd been away for a year. So we sat down with one of my colleagues, whose name I shall not mention, and then my wife. Yeah. And we drafted 2 letters.
Okay.
We are asking for time off to join my family. We're going to be out of the country.
Yeah.
We knew that may be rejected.
Yes.
The other letter was, we are resigning.
What?
So,
and you've prepared both of them?
Both of them are ready. So you are not going to go back to be whatever. So when she took the letter, she explained and why it was. No, you can't go now. Let them go. Whatever will be allowing you to go from time to time.
Yeah.
Say, no. The options are 2. You allow me to go, or this is my letter of resignation. Yes. So we were let to go. So... So we went, and it was good because the experience was good for the kids. Initially, she also became a housewife for about 3 months. Not easy. She was used to being busy. Yes. Ultimately, she got an attachment in the Institute of Genetics, Duncan Guthrie Institute. Yes. So we were all working and so on. She was working about 5-6 hours. Yes. So we still had our 2 kids, but I was very, very intensely busy myself.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I really love how for you and your wife, you were intentional about, now this part of the journey, let's do it together.
Yeah.
And at the same time, also just figuring out how do we put the balance, making sure our children have a great experience while we also get that professional advancement. Yes. And how long was the program?
The program was 2 years.
Okay.
But after a year, I did I did get a letter from my employer curiously telling me, we notice you are not back yet from your training.
After 1 year.
After 1 year.
But the program is 2 years.
So they did tell me that, no, I was so distraught when I got that letter as a drafter. I said, we had this discussion.
Yes.
Luckily, they were not too bad. They came back and I was able to get my job still.
Yeah. And was your wife able to get her job as well?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
There are not too many people who had done
hematology or hematology oncology.
Hematology oncology.
Yeah. There are not many.
There are not many those days.
And in terms of cardiologists at that time, how many pediatric cardiologists were you in the country by then?
Pediatric cardiologist was assessor, and then Betty. Betty was in private practice.
Yes.
Dr. Mayabi, who was working for the military.
Yeah.
So he was sequestered in memorial.
Yes.
And then Anabwani left
for
Southern Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So my other classmate, Christine, I was pushing Christine, when are you going to start studying? Come join us. And said, you stop. I'll come when I'm ready.
Yes.
So ultimately, she came and she joined and she went and did her cardiology. So we were at least two, Christine and I.
Yes.
Others subsequently followed. There was one of our other slightly older pediatricians, Celestine Okelo. You might remember her. She passed away a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
She also had been to Birmingham, and so she was there.
Yeah.
So Celestine, myself, Betty, and then we had Christine joining in.
Yes.
And then these days they've grown. There are so many I don't even know all of them now.
It's growing. You call her Christine.
Yes.
The rest of the world.
That's fine. Yeah.
Yes. So it sounds like there were like 5, 6.
There were not that many. There were not that many.
Cardiologists.
No, there were not that many. Yeah.
And that also speaks to the legacy that you guys set up, because now there are more.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not yet enough, but then there are a few more people who are in training and also who started practicing. And so I think a lot of the groundwork that Dr. Assessor and yourselves had set up speaks to the shoulders on which the cardiologists who are now my generation are standing.
Oh, there are many now, and they are very good. I've listened to them presenting, and it's fantastic.
Yeah. How did public health come in the mix?
Yes. When I came back from Glasgow in 93, I found my teacher, Professor Meme was our teacher. He was the director of the hospital then, Kenyatta Hospital. He said, I want you to become the quality assurance manager. I said, no, but I just want to do cardiology,
I'm happy to do my
cardiology.
Echoes, my diagnosis.
I was spending time in the cath lab. And I knew I'd live happily ever after in the cath lab and so on. Yeah. But I was swayed and I was persuaded upon to, we used to call him Julius the Head behind his back, because in the Department of Pediatrics, there was Professor Meme, Julius. Then there was a driver who was called Julius. There was a man who used to make tea for us. He was also called Julius. So you say Julius the Head, Julius the Chest, and Julius the Tail. So Julius the Head.
So Julius the Head.
And she said, no, you must do this. You must.
Yeah.
You will learn.
Yes.
So I'm shoved now between learning, quality assurance. World Bank was very heavy now on total quality management in the 90s.
Yeah.
So you're shoved to this industry to go and learn this, to introduce some sort of quality care in the hospital alongside other places. For instance, you talk to people who work in the exchange. You say, you must carry yourself differently. People are lost. They're trying to track this patient. If you're a security guard, people are generally not criminals in the hospital. They're lost and so on. So you have to work slightly differently. It's just improving quality of work. So I did spend my whole about 2 years being the head of quality assurance, but I was still sneaking to do my echoes and my cards and so on. So it's a bit stressful. And we also had opened a little clinic, which we had difficulties keeping afloat because we weren't sitting there long enough. So you're trying to
and you need to invest the time. Just be there.
So you're sort of stretched apart. So I knew that I would always live and work in cardiology.
Yeah.
But round about 2004, there was a conference in Nairobi on the environment, and that was round about the time that we had aflatoxin. A lot of people died in Makueni.
Yes.
And this child environmental health was held in at the UN.
Yeah.
We were invited. So Fred and myself were part of that. We joined the team.
Yeah.
And we kind of got drawn into it, all these public health issues and so forth. Some cardiology and things,
Aflatoxin, cardiology.
Cardiology.
Yes.
And so we get drawn onto that. We ended up doing a course in Athens, a diploma in environmental health.
Yeah.
And we would be involved in that. So I continued in it. But also, it was the era of HIV, AIDS then. Mm-hmm. It was a very big problem for children because children lag behind in terms of getting care.
Yeah.
And Fred and I were trying to grow KPA. So we got
KPA being Kenya Pediatric Association.
Yes.
Right.
So we were there just trying to grow it and trying to encourage people to put children on treatment. So we got swung into the world of HIV.
Mm-hmm. So, again, cardiology, environment, you found yourself in HIV.
So Fred Were, myself, Dr. Kenodia, Dr. Mbudia, we are in this, and we would travel across the country, working in clinics and whatever, trying to encourage people to start children on care because you'll find many adults, but children
were not getting HIV care.
They were not getting
pediatric HIV care.
I think there was a mental block in many of the caregivers that they didn't kind of want to start children on it. So there was a lot of heavy lifting in all this mentorship. In fact, mentorship as a term became very strong during that time. So bits of our lives, we were in the association matters, in immunization matters, in cardiology, in environment, and so on. So but that's pediatrics.
That's pediatrics. Yeah. I like how you say that. And now, as a member years later, I'm in awe because now there are more structures in place where you have more hands on deck to do the HIV work. Like there are people who do pediatric HIV work. I think Dr. Mbuthia is still in that. And then there are guys who've picked up immunization, the infectious disease teams. And then you think about being able to go around and do the mentorship bits. And we've been able to do that at a subspecialty level. And you're talking about having started where it was just you guys. You were the specialty.
All over the place. We were learning and doing adult learning, all this andragogy thing and so on.
Yes.
Teaching to teach back.
Teaching to teach back. It was quite literally I'm sponging because when I go back, I have to be able to teach everybody else. And to be able to recognize that as we are standing on the shoulders of you, our giants. Really, we talk about it in speeches in very separate sort of terms, but then this is real time in terms of it's because of what you guys did that we're able now as pediatricians to work through the association, to be able to work around the country and be able to have an impact in terms of our communities. And so let me just say I'm giving you your flowers now.
Thank you. Yeah. When I should go and the natural order of things is that I'll go first. You have already given...
I've already given you flowers.
Yes. So please don't waste that money.
Yes. No. We will waste it. We will use it to say a very big thanks. And so as your path is doing cardiology and a bit of public health and eventually environmental health, what made you stick with environmental health? Because I think even for me, the first time I really had an understanding of environmental health and its connection with pediatrics was during a conference in, I want to say 2012. And by that time, I was told, Dr. Githanga has been doing it for years. So what made you stick with environmental health?
For a long time, it was called my thing. Oh, that thing of yours.
That thing of yours. That's Dr. Githanga's thing. Yes.
That's my thing. Let me go back.
Yeah.
In 2006, we'd have a lot of conversation between Fred Were, myself, and another friend of ours. I'm sure he doesn't mind me mentioning him.
Yes.
Charles Muga. He says, you guys, when will you position yourself to being able to get others to do the things you do, Why do you have to go and receive that baby? Is it only you who can do that? Why don't you get other people to do that?
Yeah.
Why don't you position yourself in a way that you'll hand over?
Yeah.
So very, very philosophical talk. And Charles Muga presents in Spice FM, and if you listen to his wisdom.
Yeah.
He's so very fun. And actually from that conversation, and we used to have a lot of meet in social establishments around about Hurlingham.
Yeah.
And he would keep on chiding us. Look, we're just having nice time, and then you go and then you come back, keep on going. These deliveries, seriously?
How are you going to, and by how old were you by that time when he was churning you with this conversation?
Well, we were still fairly mature. I mean, this is 2006.
Yes.
We're old.
But not as much silver hair
then. No. Silver hair came later.
Yes.
So from that conversation, we began to move into areas of needing to study public health. And actually, an awful lot of us, I think about maybe 8, 12 people, wanted to go and study public health. At the time, you were working, because my primary job when I left Kenyatta was my only way of earning a livelihood was to run a clinic. So I couldn't afford to be full-time in class. So when we tried to look for somebody who would have part-time, they didn't have. The University of Nairobi Public Health department did not have. They had full-time. You had to be full-time. So that wasn't working. So that led us to actually registering with the London School. London School has an excellent MPH program. Quite costly.
Yes.
So we queued up that, and I did it. I did very, very demanding self-study, whatever, for 3 years. Usually do it in 2 years. I did it in 3 years.
Yeah.
And you send material, you join the web board, and you discuss, and you whatever, you upload your assignments.
Yes.
Very tough.
Yeah.
Very tough, and you're trying to run a clinic, and you have deadlines.
And you're self-funded.
Self-funded, yes.
What?
The cost, £15,000 was the cost of the tuition.
That's expensive.
Yes.
Even back then.
Yes, lots of money.
Yes.
So we did, and we finished. And by that time, unfortunately, I loved pain, so I picked the widest possible spectrum of public health. I did finance, I did economics, I did economic evaluation, healthcare evaluation.
Yes.
I did HIV.
Yes.
I did water and sanitation. I did all these sorts of things.
Yeah. Very broad, very heavy
broad
topics.
Very heavy topics that did not connect. Yeah. There are people who went into, they streamed themselves in health promotion as their strength. Others went into environment. Others went into epidemiology. I wanted to understand.
All the heavy ones.
Just
all the heavy ones.
Maybe it's for love of pain, So we did that, and I struggled a little bit because the things were wide and had never done economics in high school, and then trying to do health economics at a master's level online. It was difficult.
And there's no one to now sit down and translate to you almost in mother tongue. Like, what have you just said?
Yes, what did you say? Yeah.
Yes.
So you're just there, you spend a lot of time. In fact, I think the intensity of the study traumatized my wife. She said, I couldn't do this.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm the one in the academia,
but this one,
no. It was trauma.
Yes.
So I did it, and I finished. Yeah. So that, again, reinforced my environmental issues and so on. And I thought, that's fine.
Yeah.
Now you have your MPH in the pocket. That's okay.
Yeah.
But I wasn't still satisfied. Because I've been in the vaccine space working with our National Immunization Technical Advisory Group, NITAG, KENITAG, that's what we call it.
Yes.
I kept on thinking, I know that one of the less talked about issues of aflatoxin is really immune suppression. Yeah. And I would always call it the non-infectious immune suppression. Yeah. That lives with us continuously. Yes. And that's what aflatoxin does. It blunts your immunity. If you are young, and this is happening earlier, you have a mother who is pregnant who has high aflatoxin levels because of the food she eats. She exposes her fetus to aflatoxin. So this baby who is undergoing organogenesis gets really the effects of aflatoxin intrauterine. Wow. This baby gets breast milk, which has aflatoxin. It crosses that barrier, fat barrier.
And this is after one interaction with aflatoxin.
Yes. You know, you have been reading.
Yes.
And then all these issues of immunizations we give them, and then you start saying, who said that we should be having immunizations at about 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 14 weeks? How did this come about? is this thing the same? So I had these sort of questions and so on. Are you even actually immunized against some of these diseases? So I did have those questions and so on. And in 2011, I began reading. I finished my MPH in 2010. Kind of idle. I had too much time on my hands, So
I'm laughing because I'm just like, hey. And the way private practice is hectic, especially when you're starting up.
Yes. So I started thinking and I started reading and I'd read. And I knew I wanted to do a PhD work on this. Are there issues that relate to immune response in our population, and that affects the way vaccines work, seroconversion?
Yeah.
So I read around. I went to CAVI and I'd go for the continuous meetings, professional meetings and so on.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I wrote a concept paper and I said I want to look at this as a potential area of study.
Yeah.
So I got on there and I provisional registration for a PhD in the University of Nairobi. So you write a concept, it's marked, does it make it better?
Yeah.
You taught the art of writing and so on.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I did a lot of work. I joined some AMREF team that were working in Makueni.
Yes.
We go with them to the field and we talk about these issues, understanding what they are.
And this is you just taking the initiative, plugging in.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So you I was very close to a guy who used to work in AMREF, and I got to know many of them. So, and they were already grounded in those areas. They worked in those areas in various issues of health.
Yes.
So ultimately, I registered for a full PhD, and I wrote my proposal, and it was accepted.
Yeah.
And I was going to look at the effects of aflatoxin on vaccine seroconversion. I was going to look at all the 6 vaccines. Until you begin to read, it is a very complex business of looking at markers. What are the markers, surrogate markers for immunity for the various diseases? It is just bench work that is complex. It works in various areas. But I said, no, this is too hard. I think I'll just choose polio, and I'll choose measles, and I'll choose hepatitis B. Because those are easy to do. Only for you,
quote unquote.
Easy to do.
Yes.
When you go to find out, you actually find out these are done in very specialized laboratories.
Are they done in the country?
They are. Those have actually got to be exported elsewhere. You're trying to do that work here.
Yes.
Even the hepatitis B, which is usually done and we can do antibodies, was a lot of struggle. So ultimately, I'm talking to one of my friends, who's my good buddy, say, do you have to do 3 at great cost? You're proving a concept. You're not going to change the policy with just this study.
Yes.
So proof of concept, you'll do 1. Cut back on that cost. So I ended up choosing just the hepatitis as a marker. Then you look at what are the effects of nutrition, what are the effects of aflatoxin. Is there some pattern? Is there some threshold where you begin to blunt your immunity and so on? So it was very exciting journey. So, and I finished a PhD in 2019.
Congratulations.
Practitioner.
You characterize yourself as like a person who likes pain academically. And I'm listening and I'm just like, you took yourself to PhD?
Yeah. I developed the question and I paid for it myself.
Yes.
I didn't get any funding. Too old to get funding.
Too old to get funding?
Oh, no. They say if you're over 35 now, you're a dinosaur, you can't get any funding.
You can't get any funding.
So at the age of 62, I was able to get my PhD.
What? And it's 62 is not kidogo years also.
Yes.
But then there's so many people who are having life crisis, feeling too old to do these things. What would you say to that person who's like, my time has petered? I already did either my pediatrics. I'm feeling like I'm either too old or I'm too, aged out of the learning process. What would you say to that person?
I think all of us, and I think your generation you do a lot more gym, you run and you put weights and so on. I see people running with dumbbells and so on. The brain is also pretty much like that. You don't use it, you lose it. One older colleague of ours says, if you do the same thing for 20 years and you don't read anything, you're actually a witch doctor at the end of 20 years. You haven't developed your skills.
He's not wrong, though.
He's right.
Not wrong, though. Yeah.
So really, reading is part and parcel of medicine. It doesn't matter what level you do.
Yeah.
Not everyone is created for academic work. I'm actually inclined towards that way. And going back again as postgraduates in pediatrics, many of us actually wanted to go back to the Department of Pediatrics to teach. But by the time we were finishing, we experienced some fairly traumatic issues. And I hear a lot of young people saying the training was very bad, it was abusive. I said, that's
traumatizing.
Standard. That's standard.
It was traumatizing, though.
It's always been traumatizing.
It's always been. It doesn't soften the blow, though.
So we many of us thought that we'd go back to teach, but by the time we finished, we wanted to go away from that department.
Yeah.
Because there are people, and I wouldn't mention names, who are traumatizers.
Yeah.
But they are great teachers, and many of them brought their grandchildren for us to see later.
Yeah.
So we knew there was nothing. It's not really personal. So that need to teach was always there in me, need to work with younger people.
Yeah.
I love bedside teaching, especially cardiology. When I went to do cardiology was made very difficult.
Yeah.
Our forefathers, God bless their souls,
Yes.
made cardiology look like it's only me who understands it. Every bit of my tissues hated the fact that it's only certain people that could do certain things. I say, that doesn't help anyone.
Yeah. When you stay with it.
Yeah, you must. What about when you get a myocardial infarction and you're the only one who knows how to manage?
Yeah.
So when I went to study, I told myself, I must demystify this. So make it easy. Don't make things complicated and so on. And I think that at subspecialty levels, my teachers would tell me, your work is to support your colleagues. Is this child who is not growing? Is there a heart disease? Is this child who has a mama? I don't know whether this is innocent or not. It's to support. So you make it easy and you make it not to take their patient. And in private practice, sometimes you're seen as taking their patients.
Yes.
If I have a patient with rheumatic heart disease, what I do is to review them every 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
I don't need to see them all the time to get their monthly injections. Go back to your doctor.
Yes.
He will decide when I need to review you, if I need to do so earlier.
Which is the structure of primary health care. Yes. That's ideally how it's supposed to work. Yeah.
So you in private setup, sometimes there's a little bit of you're taking away patients because you can see general patients, you can see cardiac patients. But really, where I come from, they say that cows don't finish grass for the other one. So
you need to say that for the people at the back of the tent. You need to say that for the people at the back of the tent. Because for a lot of the people in my generation and the generations coming after me, that's been the struggle in terms of how do we get into this place where there's been so many strongholds, for lack of a better word.
Yes.
How do we make it through with the understanding that there's enough to go around for everybody?
I think I was talking about this the other day.
Yeah.
In a meeting.
Yeah.
I say, kids, when you look at kids when they're growing, and you give them toys, even 5 toys that look the same, they want to keep all of them. They will not share. And then you have to tell them, it's okay, you can give away one. So they reluctantly give away one. But the tendency is to just hog and keep. They're mine. They're mine.
Yeah.
But over time, you teach that kid, no, sharing is, these days, sharing is caring.
Sharing is caring.
So you share, you not be lesser. And maybe you create even friends. But there are adults who don't move away from that space of hogging.
Yeah.
They will hog skumawiki, although they will not buy all the skumawiki in the market. They will not tell you there's some place that's cheaper.
Yeah,
they can't buy it all. They will keep to themselves.
Yeah,
I think it's a scarcity mentality that people have.
Yeah,
you do not become lesser or you do not become poorer because somebody else is doing what, and you do not have to put them down for you to go up. But those are things that are probably related to your own personality and your own maybe traumas of the past, and uncertainties and maybe feeling you're not good enough. And I think that one of the biggest fears as human beings is really knowing ourselves. Our dark little things that we don't like. I think I'm a bit mean, you know. It's very difficult to accept that you're mean.
Yeah.
But I think when you can look and criticize yourself, then you say that was not necessary. You do not always have to win.
Yeah.
It does not always have to be you. You do not have to have all the ward in private hospital, all the patients are yours.
Yeah.
No,
it can never be, Saying, well, you can try, but it can never, it's not even sustainable.
Yeah, it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And we've seen that.
Yeah. Where do you see the future of environmental health, especially in the pediatric field, headed to?
Ooh. Anybody who is not bothered with the environment right now. I mean, look at all this COP we are talking about. Look at all these extreme weather situations we are having, from flooding to drought to malaria moving to areas they didn't exist, to a city like this experiencing diseases that we thought were gone, cholera and so on.
Yes.
You know, so those things will always surround us. The traditional illnesses, some of which had gone away, they are coming back. Then we have other diseases that are coming because of our lifestyles, our diet, our immobility. I see everyone now, especially in the rural areas, taking a bike to do maybe 100 meters or 150 meters.
Yeah.
Maybe part of that is not to spoil their shoes, especially the ladies. They don't want their heels to break. Yes. But I see that even in rural areas, people are actually becoming bigger than they should. So we will have diseases of our lifestyles, and you do not have to be very wealthy for you to get into obesity, for you to get into watching too much TV, where we are getting now children spending time with electronic grandmother, that they actually lose the art of being able to speak and communicate. Socialization is kind of lost. There are those issues. So you just need to look at it deeper. You just need to look at it deeper. I was talking about when CT scans became common. I mean, children with just adenoids were exposed to CT scans without a lot of thought. If you remember the older X-rays, chest X-rays were thoraco-abdominal pelvic X-rays.
Yes.
So
all the way from the neck down to the mid-thigh.
So these little ones, and they'll have many X-rays in their lifetime.
Right.
So radiation, the biggest source of radiation is actually iatrogenic. In the hospitals, lack of thinking. So you just have to open your eyes just a little bit to see these things that fall under that broad category of environmental pediatrics lies. But it's easy to be HIV or renal or neonatology.
Don't get us into trouble with those guys.
It's true.
Yes.
But even that, I mean, noise, for instance, or excess light for all these little babies and so on, it's beginning to be recognized as a problem. That's why we now say mothers should touch their prems and so on, talk to them. So all these things are there, so we just need to think a little bit wider. Of course, those specialists for those particular areas, but sometimes it's even that teacher.
Yes.
A teacher in class who tells you there is something wrong with this child. They do not hear, maybe they do not see very well. So they are said in our days, you'll be told you are naughty.
Yes.
But you probably have ADHD or you're sort of high-functioning autistic.
We're always saying, by the way, because we didn't have that diagnosis then, those kids must have really been beaten.
They suffered.
They suffered.
They are beaten. They are chased away. They can be beaten at home. This naughty child, they're beaten in class.
Yeah.
And many of them just don't finish school if they don't come from families that are a little bit more
turned on or switched on. What else could potentially be happening. What would your words of advice be for a clinician who is trying to figure out funding and yet pursuing their dream of fellowship? What would you say to this person who's now having, this is the big barrier in front of them, the funding, but they have that dream, they've figured out this is the general direction I want to take?
The first thing is to really know what you want. Many people don't know what they want. They're unhappy about where they are, but if you ask them what is it that you want. They don't know. You must know what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Then you must ask yourself, who are you? What's it about you?
Mm-hmm.
Today, in terms of funding, even for many, particularly in the sciences, in the science field,
mm-hmm.
if you're a woman, you're probably a little more favored. Women in science and so on, they are favored. If you're younger, you're favored. So the earlier you do these things, the better. You should really be getting into your PhDs in your late 20s, early 30s, rather than late 50s.
So early 40s, late 50s,
Yes, you begin it a little earlier so that you work on it. But the key thing, so step number one, there's always help out there.
Yeah.
There's always an opportunity. It's how you present yourself. How do you prepare yourself?
Yeah.
Where do you add value? If you're going to join a club, they ask you, where do you want to join? What are you going to bring?
Yes.
So, and that's the same sort of thing in subspecialty. I want to do this because ventilation, high frequency ventilation and use of ECMO is very poorly done here.
Right.
So I want to fill that niche in my neonatology study. And you sequester yourself and your thoughts that way. When you focus on what you want, your energies tend to get drawn in that direction, and you will get answers are not clear, but answers will become clear as time moves on. And then sometimes people behave as if they're going to die tomorrow. If I don't make this much, or I don't qualify in this at the age of 32, I'm dead. No. So don't put yourself into tight deadlines and so on, so that when things don't work, you kind of feel you are becoming too old and so on.
Yeah.
So I think for me is to be clear what you want, why you want to be, know there's going to be a crowded house. And there are many opportunities, even subspecialty. I think for a long time, I did talk about this adolescent space and so on, special education and so on. There's a lot of work that needs to be done by people who work with teachers, psychologists, psychiatrists, and so on. Because children have unrecognized problems, not known very well. I mean, and there's nobody to study that a little bit more.
Yes.
We are pediatricians, so we'll not be talking about geriatrics. I've also been telling physicians we really need to have people who study geriatrics, because geriatrics are different.
Yeah.
So there are areas for you to fill in. There are opportunities, but it's for you to focus. Don't give yourself tight deadlines. And keep your eyes open. Go to conferences. Conferences are very interesting areas. When I was trying to look for funding
for
my PhD, I've gone to meetings. I've been to Rio de Janeiro.
Wow.
To be at the right spot, meeting people who will help me look at all these serum markers and so on. Of course, I didn't get it. It cost me an awful lot of money and time. I spent a lot of time going to meetings for people who do agriculture and vet because
of the aflatoxin.
Aflatoxin. Because a lot of that work was done by people who are not even physicians. Physicians did not see that as their business. So focus and persistence and just enjoying life.
And just enjoying the journey of it. I really appreciate that, because I've had the opportunity to work alongside you, trying to put together programs around environmental health and educating people. And I remember you used to tell me, Jerry, relax. Like, don't take it so seriously. Calm down. Like bring it down a whole few notches. This thing is going to work out. And you just need to give it time and also trust that you've done the work towards it. What would you say to a couple who are in the situation that you and your wife were in before cardiology? Because we're finding a lot of tense conversations. People don't know where to turn to in terms of being able to have these hard conversations. Do you go and pursue your dream by yourself? Do you go as a family?
Yes.
What would your words of advice for such couples?
I have no advice, because I'd be pretending to be a marriage counselor and I'm far from it.
Oh my gosh.
but I think that just without too much thought, couples must be supportive of each other. And they must talk openly. Sometimes, depending on the ages of your children, somebody may have to hold their time back and support the other one, and vice versa. And I think the worst bit is competition. If there is mental competition, and there's sometimes subtle competition between couples, I think it's disaster. Couples know each other too well that you damage each other very effectively if you want to sabotage that and so on.
Yeah.
I mean, the worry is that this one will rise faster than I am, or I am the man, therefore it should be me, or she may leave me when that's not
when
really
she achieves
true.
Or whatever.
Yes. And I think at the end of the day, your family is going to be the most important thing. It doesn't matter what you do, whether you're in a political office or in an academic office, or whatever it is. You come back to your family and you'll find that's what matters most. I think fathers suffer this most because we are brought up to be mwanaume effort. So you must go and work.
Yeah.
So you can work so that you do not do the things you should do as a father. And I want to mention this in relation to myself. I mean, kids have a sports day, sack racing day. You're the only father who didn't come. That kid will tell you even when they are 20, 30, do you know every daddy came? It's only mine that did not. Yeah. I know he was busy working. They hold it against you. Yeah. And I think fathers are a little worse for that because we are socialized to be the breadwinners. Even when in reality all of us are breadwinners.
Yes.
You only have this child up to about maybe up to 8-9 years to have impact on them. By the time they're 11, 12, they'll be in their room, they'll be with their devices, they'll be with their friends.
Yeah.
You're just an enabler and a financier and a driver and security for that kid, but they don't need you.
Yeah, past that time.
Yes, you pass that time. And as you get older, you begin to appreciate that. So don't lose that opportunity. See if you can grow together. Make a decision as to when a colleague of yours should hold for you that call. Please go for that birthday. Of course, don't make it every day or seek how to compensate the others because they also have something like that.
Yeah.
So I would strongly suggest that you try and move everything together. You can't put even relationships can be put on hold. You can't go to do a PhD out of the country for 5 years and expect that the other person is going to be there. They needn't have gone away, but you're really not in the same space by the time you come back.
With that 5-year difference.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you sharing that because you have the benefit of that sort of like hindsight and also just seeing what has been unfolding for those in your generation, our generation as well. And I really, really appreciate that so much. And it's been so exciting hearing about the almost priest who became a cardiologist. I love it. Every single aspect of your journey from then, when you were 7, 8, to now, a bit past 62. A bit. She said PhD was 62, so that's what stuck in my head.
I'm 67 now. It's not a secret. I'll be 67 in a couple of months.
67 in a couple of months.
Yes.
I thank you so much, Dr. Githanga, for making the time to share what your experience has been, because I know for sure there'll be people who'll be listening to this and be like, we're getting down our notes and our nuggets from your experience, and also be encouraged to keep going. For those who felt, okay, I'm too old to do this, or despite the lack of opportunities, I have to actively seek them out wherever they may be. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us today. And I'm hoping that there can be sort of like an email address or a social media handle if you're on social media.
I haven't learned to be on social media yet.
You're not on social media?
Not yet.
Yeah. Or an email that should anyone have any questions, I will put it in the notes so that they can be able to reach you directly if they have any additional questions.
Yeah.
And with your permission, I'd also want to put a link for your PhD published thesis as well, just for somebody to be able to read and see and be able to see the kind of work that went into it and learn from it and maybe even take it further. Yeah. So with that, thank you so much, Dr. Githanga.
Thank you, Jerry, for having me.
Yes.
All
right. We look forward to hearing your feedback. Ask us questions. Ask me questions so that I can ask Dr. Githanga to respond to them. And until next time, bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm so glad you stayed tuned. Please get the word out and share it with at least 3 people. Make this episode like a chain letter. Share it, share it, share it. Come back for the next leg of our safari where we'll be talking about...
Think about what's right for you and then identify the institution that will give you what you want and not need, want.
Want.
Yes. And then find out if that's achievable. So I always say, for every institution that you're in, they have a vision, they have a mission, they have a goal.
Okay.
Find out if those match with yours.
Listeners are advised to use their own judgment and discretion when applying any information discussed in this and all podcast episodes to their specific situation. Always seek the advice of a qualified professional if you have any concerns or questions regarding a particular subject matter. You can find this and other episodes of this podcast on our website at www.fellowshipsafaris.org. You can also find all our episodes on all podcast platforms. Reach out to us on social media as Fellowship Safaris on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and our Twitter handle is @fellowshipsafar. You could also send us an email on fellowshipsafaris@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you and interacting with what you have to say about the Fellowship Safaris podcast. It takes a village to make this podcast. The executive producer and original music is done by Mokavi Maweu. The sound engineer is Tevin Sudi with thanks to AQ Studios. Graphic design was done by Benjamin Mboya. We would like to give a special shout out to Josephine Karianjahe and Melissa Mbogwa of Africa Podfest. All rights reserved by Dr. Jerry Karianjahe and the Fellowship Safaris podcast.